Have you ever walked slowly into your kitchen and felt oddly tired before you even started cooking anything at all? Not because the kitchen is filthy, not because there's a mountain of dishes, but because something quieter is happening. You open the fridge and immediately spot an old jar you keep meaning to throw away but somehow never do. You glance at the counter and there's a phone charger, some post, a half-empty bag you dropped there yesterday morning. None of it looks dramatic, none of it looks like a real mess, yet your energy drops the second you walk in. This happens every single day in almost every kitchen, and most people never stop to ask why. We tell ourselves we're simply not in the mood, or we're just exhausted from work or life, but sometimes the problem isn't us at all. It's the space quietly working against us. And there's a reason certain kitchens feel calm and ready, while others feel like a chore before you've even switched on the hob. It's not about having a bigger kitchen or spending money on new storage or owning fancy organizers from a shop. It's about 6 small habits that build up slowly without anyone noticing until the space stops feeling like yours. Today, we're breaking down exactly what those habits are, one at a time, using a simple approach inspired by traditional Japanese home organizing. Not because Japan is perfect or every home there looks identical, but because their thinking focuses on something powerful. The goal was never simply to clean the kitchen, it was to keep it ready for its actual purpose. That distinction changes everything about how a space feels the moment you enter it each morning. So let's talk about why a kitchen slowly turns from a space for cooking into an accidental storage room for everything. The truth is, a kitchen doesn't get messy in one dramatic moment. It gets messy in tiny, forgettable stages. One cup left in the sink after breakfast because you were rushing out the door. One carrier bag placed in the corner because you'll deal with it later, obviously. One spice jar left out on the side because putting it away felt unnecessary at the time. In that exact moment, none of it feels like a real problem worth worrying about. It's just one cup, just one bag, just one packet left sitting there. But when just one repeats itself every single day without fail, something shifts completely. The kitchen stops holding objects and starts holding tiny invisible reminders instead. Every time you walk in, your brain receives another silent to-do list update. This still needs sorting, that still needs putting away, this needs wiping down properly. Psychologists have actually studied this exact pattern, and the results are fascinating and oddly reassuring. When we're surrounded by too many visual cues, our brain works overtime trying to filter them all out. That constant, low-level filtering is genuinely exhausting, even when we don't consciously notice it happening. So the tiredness isn't really about the kitchen being dirty or unpleasant to look at. It's about the sheer mental effort required just to stand there and function normally. And here's the part most of us never realize, because we blame ourselves instead. We assume we're simply lazy, unmotivated, or having an off day compared to usual. But sometimes the problem isn't your energy levels, it's the environment quietly draining them away. This is exactly where certain households approach things differently, focusing on prevention rather than deep cleaning. Their philosophy isn't about scrubbing harder, it's about never letting the mess accumulate in the first place. So let's look at the first mistake, one almost everyone makes without even realizing it: turning the kitchen counter into an unofficial parking spot for absolutely anything and everything. Keys land there, post gets dropped there, your bag ends up resting there too. School bits, chargers, random receipts, a takeaway menu you'll definitely read later, apparently. Slowly, the surface meant for chopping and prepping becomes a temporary home for everything else. Many organized households follow one simple, almost stubborn rule about their kitchen counters daily. The counter exists for actual work, not for storing things you haven't dealt with yet. When that surface stays clear, cooking itself suddenly feels far less overwhelming to even begin. That's often the hardest part, not the cooking, but simply starting the process at all. When the space is already prepared and waiting, your brain needs far less convincing to start. It sounds like a tiny detail, but repeated daily, it genuinely reshapes your entire routine. But a cluttered counter isn't the only quiet issue hiding inside most modern kitchens today. Sometimes the biggest problem is items that have absolutely nothing to do with cooking whatsoever. Picture this scene for a moment, because you've probably lived some version of it yourself. A bundle of old carrier bags shoved into the corner, waiting for a use that never comes. On top, a stack of old gift boxes you're saving for absolutely no clear reason. Beside them, spare medication, random batteries, and an appliance you haven't touched in over a year. In a drawer somewhere, old candles, elastic bands, and objects you genuinely can't identify anymore. Strangely, half these items have nothing to do with food or cooking at all, yet somehow none of us can remember exactly when or why they ended up there. It happens because every single time we think the same forgivable little thought. I'll just leave it here for now. I'll properly sort it out later. Over time, the kitchen quietly transforms from a cooking space into a general storage unit. And here's something genuinely surprising. Close your eyes and picture your kitchen right now. Chances are at least one item instantly comes to mind that clearly doesn't belong there. But because we see it constantly, our brain eventually stops registering it as a problem. That's the dangerous part, because once clutter becomes familiar, we stop wanting to change it. Many households solve this using one simple, honest question asked regularly and without exception. Does this item actually serve a purpose inside the kitchen, right here and now? If the answer is genuinely yes, it stays exactly where it currently is. If the answer is no, it belongs somewhere else in your home instead. Sometimes your kitchen isn't actually too small, it's simply storing things that aren't kitchen-related. Now let's talk about your fridge, or perhaps that shelf full of spices and sauces. Open it right now, and you'll probably find 2 nearly identical bottles of ketchup, 3 jars of pickle, 2 boxes of tea, and something suspicious hiding right at the back. Funnily enough, we always remember exactly what was reduced or on offer while shopping, but we rarely remember what's already sitting quietly at home, waiting to be used. And with every shopping trip, the kitchen slowly fills a little more than before. Many organized households follow one refreshingly simple habit. Finish what you have, then buy. New packets only get opened once the old ones have been properly used up. This isn't just about saving money, although that's certainly a welcome bonus either way. It's about keeping every shelf lighter, clearer, and genuinely easier to actually navigate daily. When a shelf only holds what you truly use, your shopping list naturally shrinks too. Less confusion, fewer duplicates, and no more standing there wondering which jar to open first. Even those tiny daily decisions quietly drain our energy more than most people ever realize. And when a few of those decisions disappear completely, the whole day somehow feels lighter. By now, you've probably pictured a specific corner in your own kitchen more than once. If that's happened, don't worry, because honestly, you are far from being alone here. Nearly every home carries these same small, forgivable habits without anyone consciously choosing them. The good news is, you don't need a brand new kitchen to fix this. You don't need expensive storage systems either, just a handful of small, daily decisions. Which brings us to a mistake that's incredibly common, because we genuinely see it constantly. Look above your fridge, above the microwave, or along any spare kitchen shelf right now. Wherever there's a small gap, something inevitably ends up placed there almost immediately afterward. A biscuit tin here, a tissue box there, a serving tray nobody has used in months. Slowly, every available inch of empty space quietly disappears without anyone really noticing it happening. We tell ourselves it's empty anyway, so we might as well put something there. But many thoughtful households treat empty space as something genuinely valuable, not simply wasted room. Because when every single surface is full, your eyes never get a proper moment to rest. Sometimes an empty shelf isn't wasted space at all, it's breathing room for your mind. That's part of why hotel rooms and calm cafes instantly feel so relaxing to us. Not just because they're beautifully designed, but because our eyes aren't constantly scanning for clutter. Sometimes real calm doesn't come from adding something new and exciting to a space. Sometimes it simply comes from having noticeably less to look at altogether, and that's fine. Now, imagine another familiar scene, one that plays out in nearly every home most evenings. Dinner is finished, one plate sits quietly in the sink, still waiting to be washed, one mug remains on the counter, and a little oil residue still lingers near the hob. We tell ourselves we'll deal with it properly tomorrow morning once we've had some rest, but the next morning, the kitchen greets you with yesterday's mess before your day even starts. Suddenly, there's cleaning to do before your tea, cleaning before breakfast, cleaning before lunch even begins. Many organized households set aside just 2 or 3 quiet minutes before heading to bed. Wipe the counter, empty the sink, reset everything so morning starts completely fresh again. The kitchen doesn't need cleaning in the morning, it needs resetting properly the night before. And that's exactly why a ready kitchen makes you want to start cooking immediately each morning. Not cleaning first, just cooking straight away, without any hesitation or mental resistance whatsoever. Notice something important here, because your very first experience each morning quietly sets your entire day's tone. If your day begins surrounded by yesterday's unfinished tasks, your mind stays stuck there too. But when the kitchen is already prepared and waiting, your first task becomes living, not tidying. Now, picture your kitchen counter for just a moment. Really picture it clearly in your mind. Vegetables being chopped there, a lunchbox being packed there, your phone charging somewhere on that surface, school bits nearby, a bill you haven't paid yet, a shopping list scribbled on scrap paper. Essentially, your entire household's daily traffic seems to pass through that exact same tiny space. So, naturally, we assume the kitchen is simply always busy, constantly full, endlessly demanding of us. But often, the kitchen isn't actually busy at all. Every single task is just overlapping there. Many thoughtful households instead create small, dedicated zones for each different daily task or job. A little corner just for tea and coffee, kept completely separate from everything else nearby. A clear space specifically for cooking, and another one purely for packing lunches each morning. This doesn't just organize your belongings more neatly, it genuinely makes each task feel simpler. Have you ever noticed that when guests unexpectedly arrive, we instinctively rush straight toward the kitchen? Not the bedroom first, not the living room first, but almost always the kitchen instead. Strange, isn't it, when you actually stop and think carefully about that particular instinct? That's because somewhere along the way, we started treating the kitchen as our home's true reflection. And that's precisely why a messy kitchen never quite feels like just one messy room. Somehow, it makes the entire house feel disorganized, chaotic, and slightly out of control too. Which is exactly why lightening your kitchen tends to make the whole home instantly feel calmer. Now, you might be wondering, does something this small honestly make any real difference at all? Probably not in just one single day, and that's completely understandable and perfectly normal too. But imagine spending 2 fewer minutes each day searching, tidying, or clearing space unnecessarily. Multiply that across an entire year, and think about how much time and energy that actually saves. So the real question becomes, do you need to overhaul your entire kitchen right now? Absolutely not. And that's genuinely the most beautiful part of this whole approach we've discussed. This philosophy isn't about massive, exhausting transformations completed within a single, overwhelming weekend attempt. It's about small, consistent resets repeated daily, which quietly compound into something far more meaningful. And that brings us to the final, most important piece of everything we've covered together today. Where exactly should you actually start, given everything we've just walked through together right now? If you try reorganizing your entire kitchen today, chances are it reverts back within days. That's why these households never attempt to transform everything in one single overwhelming attempt whatsoever.
Instead, they dedicate just a few quiet minutes daily toward keeping the space genuinely ready. Here are 3 small resets you can realistically start using from tonight, right now, immediately. Before bed, leave your counter completely clear so tomorrow doesn't begin with yesterday's leftover tasks. Only open a new packet or bottle once the previous one has genuinely run out. Each evening, take just 1 minute and honestly ask yourself this simple, revealing question. Is there anything here that genuinely serves no real purpose inside this kitchen whatsoever? If the answer is yes, quietly return it to wherever it actually belongs instead. No dramatic overhaul, no exhausting weekend project, just one small, consistent reset, practiced daily. And within that simple habit lies the most important lesson from this entire Japanese approach. You don't need a perfect kitchen, you need one that helps tomorrow's version of you. That's genuinely all it takes. Nothing more complicated, nothing more expensive, nothing more overwhelming required. Sometimes a kitchen doesn't need deep cleaning, it simply needs to become a kitchen again. Because when a space finally does what it was always meant to do, everything feels lighter. At the very start, we asked why kitchens feel tiring before we've even begun cooking anything. Perhaps now you finally have your answer. And it isn't really about the dishes. It's about the small, repeated habits that quietly steal the kitchen's true purpose daily. And that's exactly why these households don't just clean their kitchens, they reset them purposefully. But the biggest lesson from everything we've explored today isn't really about Japan itself. It's the simple truth that real calm rarely comes from a one big renovation project. It comes from small, consistent resets repeated quietly, day after day, without much fuss. So imagine walking into your kitchen tomorrow morning without needing to clear the counter first. No dishes waiting in the sink, no searching endlessly for spices you know you own. Just the kettle switching on and the smell of tea slowly filling your entire home. And as your family wakes up one by one and wanders into the kitchen together, your first job isn't cleaning, it's simply being present with them. Fully. That's really what a peaceful kitchen means. A place where mornings begin with connection, not chores.